Well, welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us today. Just a little bit of housekeeping for everybody. Everybody has been placed on mute. We're slated for 45 minutes and we'll be monitoring the chat. So at any point during the session today, feel free to submit any questions via the chat function. And unfortunately, or fortunately, however you look at it, thanks to COVID, I think that most people are very accustomed to now Zoom. So feel free again to reach out. We'll also be recording today's session. So if you have to depart early, we will be happy to send you out a link and that you can share. And everybody should be able to see my slide deck. So we're just going to go ahead and get into the bulk of today's session and talk about today's agenda. So I'm Scott Hare. I'm going to be your moderator / host for today's session. A little bit of background on me. I've worked the past 2 decades delivering operational efficiency solutions to public K-12, higher ed, and private school organizations, and partnering with a number of different state-level business and maintenance associations. I actually joined the team at ClassWallet at the beginning of the year with the objective to continue bringing value to those that work to support the learning environment in schools. Many of these folks are really the unsung heroes within school operations that often don't get recognized. You have your folks that are behind the scenes in accounts payable, you've got your bookkeepers, you've got your custodians, you've got your maintenance and clerks, etc. These are the folks that are really keeping the schools up and running and available for everybody within school operations. So also joining us today is Shelley Pruitt. Shelley has spent the last 8 years serving as the Chief Financial Officer and District Treasurer for the, I want to call it El Dorado, but I know it's El Rado Public Schools in Arkansas. And, a little bit about her district. She has 7 schools and serving approximately 4,400 students. Shelly was born and raised in El Dorado and is proud to work with the schools that she attended as a child. She is actually a graduate of Southern Arkansas University, and prior to her career in school finance, she spent several years in a private family office where she gained a lot of experience around various areas of accounting, anywhere from trust and real estate planning and litigation to NFP accounting for private foundations and accounting for farm and other natural resources in the oil and gas and timber operations. So she also did a little stint with a state that was containing a vineyard and winery. So I'm really going to have to pick your brains a little bit more about that one, Shelley. But when she's not working, you're likely to find her at the lake in the company of her husband, John, and their dog, who is named Bucket. So excited to have Shelley with us today, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And next we have Ash Hill. Ash is actually our senior solutions consultant at ClassWallet. He has over a decade of experience working in and for educational institutions. His service experience works, he's worked with finance, maintenance administration, as well as facility scheduling and IT professionals. He's worked with a number of different CMMS systems, IT ticketing systems, and accounting workflow processes. So we're really excited to have Ash join us as well. He is the mastermind behind the product and functionality that we have here at ClassWallet. So more to come about Ash. And for those that aren't familiar with ClassWallet, I did want to at least give you guys a high-level background of us before we get into the bulk of today's presentation with Shelley. But a little bit about ClassWallet. We are actually a purchasing efficiency platform. We are not an e-procurement or an ERP system. We work alongside of those types of applications. Our platform is really built to address all of the on-the-fly, unplanned, unpredictable, non-capital related purchases that are taking place within your schools on a day-to-day basis. And a bulk of these types of purchases are typically low dollar purchases that are being made less than $500, but unfortunately still tend to follow the same traditional process as like a $50,000 purchase and go through a formal PO process. A lot of these purchases that we see are typically just due to a lot of teacher requests that are coming in and or operations team members that need to purchase a part to complete a work order. So we've been around since 2014, and currently today our platform is being leveraged within more than 3,600 schools, representing over 2.5 million students. And we're working with organizations of various sizes. Our largest client has over 250,000 students in Florida, where our smallest public K through 12 school district has a mere 125 students. And they're actually in Idaho and came on board with us about a month ago. And that was Bliss Joint Unified School District. We also have, districts and, even some charter schools that are leveraging our application that have less than 100 students. The point being is our system and our platform is very scalable based upon, the size of your organization. And at the end of the day, what we want to be able to do is empower school districts and educational organizations to achieve the highest levels of accountability, productivity, and really back office efficiency while cultivating a culture of trust and flexibility for their staff as well as stakeholders. And again, just to go a little bit deeper into, again, what we are trying to address and the problems that we address is when you look across the entire organization, there's typically 3 types of expenses that we see occurring. You have your capital expenditures, you have your planned expenditures. These are your scheduled purchases or bulk purchases that you're making on an annual, biannual basis. And then you have your unplanned expenditures, which are, again, often the highest in volume and the lowest in dollar value. That is where we focus on addressing those day-to-day high volume, low dollar transactions that are occurring that generate the highest volume of paperwork to manage. And you're going to hear Shelly talk a little bit about the paper and how it travels and the traveling time associated to paper process. Because we find that this paper and the traveling of this piece of paper happens in 2 core areas. It's often in teachers for classroom supplies, and then within your mobile workforces, such as your maintenance and operations teams. For teachers, these are often handled at the site level, and school bookkeepers are being inundated with a lot of requests from teachers for supplies, for special projects or programs, specific types of items to really, better support their learning experience for their students. And on the flip side, within maintenance and operations teams, we see that they're making a lot of day-to-day supply and part purchases to address their workloads because, often those M&O teams don't have the needed supplies on hand to complete every form or type of repair within their organization. So they have to make a run out to their local Home Depot or Lowe's, whatever the case may be. But for today's discussion, we are really going to be focusing on how the teachers have the ability to get the items that they need for their classroom. And with that, I wanted to kind of showcase a little bit about our platform. The ClassWallet backend is really the same across our entire suite of solutions. The front end application of our solution is really tailored based upon the end user of who's making that purchase. So with that, we have a platform for teachers where we help teachers gain the ability to purchase the goods and the services that they need to achieve a successful student outcome. Where on the flip side, in maintenance, we provide a mechanism that enables your maintenance crews to easily purchase the supplies that they need on a day-to-day basis. As well as we even have a platform for families. There's some states and some districts that provide funding directly to families to access appropriated funds outside of the school system to provide the needs for their students. So again, we're all operating from the same platform and providing the same oversight and control and data needed, to be able to showcase how those funds are being spent. So with that, I wanted to at least transition into providing, again, a high-level overview associated to how our clients are leveraging ClassWallet to help streamline their purchasing process, associated to various funding sources. Within our platform, you have a mechanism to be able to provide funding in a one-to-one manner, as well as in a one-to-many manner. For example, and Shelley's going to be talking about this, in the state of Arkansas, the state has legislation in place that every K-6 classroom teacher is provided $500 a year to use to obtain supplies for their classroom. We find this only in a handful of states that they have this type of legislation in place. West Virginia, Alabama, Arkansas, Utah, but more commonly at the site level or the program level, there's funding being provided to small groups of individuals that need to be tracked and managed. And we find that a lot of our clients, that they're using it for principals, discretionary funds, foundation grants, and most commonly, and most recently, is related to COVID-related expenditures. And we're starting to see a lot of our clients that have been on our platform for a number of years starting to look at ways to get money closer to the student as possible and leverage our platform to be able to do that, especially with this round 3 of funding with the ESSER funds. But just kind of giving you guys some background uses and use cases related to how our clients are leveraging the platform. Shelley is going to be specifically talking about how her district is leveraging the platform around the classroom supply stipend that teachers are provided. And most commonly we hear when our clients are telling us, that how they're managing this process prior to ClassWallet is that, there's a lot of chaos. There's a lot of paper involved in this process. There's not a lot of data. A lot of clients are saying that, they don't have information related to how the funds are being spent. Or if they do have that data is being managed in multiple places. Each site is tracking and managing their own version of an Excel spreadsheet. There's really not a lot of real-time access to fund balances. We know that ERP systems, often aren't always the most user-friendly for this type of information and typically may have a lag associated to what is the available balance. We also hear that sites are really having, and struggling with chasing down missing receipts. We actually had a client, and I won't tell what state it was in, but they had a stipend for their teachers, and they were overseeing over $500,000 in classroom supplies. They had asked their teachers to hold on to receipts, and they did an audit of 100 teachers where they found only 20% of those teachers were in compliance. So they had a fear of being out of compliance with state regulations and unfortunately not having accountability for how those dollars were being leveraged. Then we hear stories of, the sorting and delivery of materials and supplies to sites, who ordered what, where should go, and because of a lot of partial shipments taking place within schools, especially at the site level. So lots of different challenges, but, wanted to at least kind of share again at a high level of what we most commonly hear. And again, now that we've shared that background related to ClassWallet, I'd like to welcome Shelly to kind of, deep dive into her story and, provide us with a good understanding of, where her district came from. So thank you again, Shelly, for joining us. And, I recall when we first talked that you mentioned that ClassWallet changed the quality of life for your team.
Yes.
So I'm hoping that you can share with the group here how your team managed your teacher supply purchases prior to implementing Teacher Wallet, and give a little bit of background about how much time was involved in that process, how many people, as well as the challenges that your team was experiencing.
Okay. Prior to jumping on to ClassWallet, we did old school requisitions, paper requisitions. The teacher would fill one out, whether it was with receipts attached for reimbursement or something they wanted us to create a purchase order or submit the order online for. And it would, I guess, circulate at the school between the teacher to an assistant principal or to the principal who would approve it, and then over to us. And anywhere from 3 to 5 desks, that paper would travel through this department, depending on each desk's function. Teachers could plan on being reimbursed if that's all it was. Honestly, we were pretty quick with that. We pay bills at least weekly. We try to every Tuesday and Thursday. So we can reimburse people pretty quickly as long as their paper travels through the school and then through the desks here efficiently. And most of the time we were pretty good with that, but it's all of the $15.41 orders. And then maybe there was one for $70. And, you divide $500 by even 3 or 4 transactions times all the teachers that we had. That's a lot of transactions every year. And they were all pretty small. We did have a few teachers, maybe 2 or 3 at each location, that would hold all their receipts and submit their entire requisition with receipts attached for $500 at once. We love those people. Those are our favorites. But most folks, they didn't know what they needed until they needed it. And they would submit those items or 2 or 3 items to us, 1 at a time, 2 at a time, 3 at a time. And I know you guys know what that's like, because that's probably what some of you guys are doing now. I looked back to the 18-19 fiscal year, just because I felt like that was the most recent real year we had. And we had just over 1,500 transactions that relate to this specific budget, which is the state mandated money. That is all that we used it for this year. We will be expanding it next year because we love it so much. But this year, as opposed to the 1,500, and I think it was 44 transactions that I pulled up for the last fiscal year, this year we had a transaction to send the money to the company, and then we booked 8 journal entries. And unless there's anything cleanup for orders that maybe were placed and they didn't get fulfilled, that's it. So we went from 1,544 transactions to less than 10. Now, I'm keenly aware that next year when we expand it, there will be a handful more, but it's been mind blowing. I'm a techno peasant. I do not like technology. I'm a pen and pencil and paper kind of girl, but I love this portal. My staff loves this portal. Our teachers love this portal.
Yeah, that's awesome. You'd shared with me prior to implementing Teacher Wallet that you guys had a 21-digit code that you had to associate to every transaction and every teacher each year. Can you kind of share a little bit about that from an accounting background?
Yes. And in fairness, we still have the 21-digit account code. But because we wanted a unique budget unit for each teacher in the 18-19 school year, I looked this up this morning just so I could know, we had 133 unique budget units, that's 21-digit codes, for our staff to complete all these transactions for the year. This year we had 4. That frees up so much room. And of course, we've had to identify and I guess use a lot more program codes for my Arkansas schools. They've added some new program codes this year for the ESSER funds. A handful of those codes we were already using on these budget units. And so those are now freed up to use however the state tells us to, or other ways that we need to. It was just burdensome, really, in hindsight, from just about every aspect of how we were doing that process before versus how we're doing it now.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. And you had shared a little bit about, and I apologize, I'm going to go back one slide so I can see my notes, but you had shared that, as far as implementation goes, that it didn't, you guys adopted the ClassWallet, but held off a little bit on implementing. But talk about once you guys decided to move forward, how much time did it take you guys to get it off the ground?
8 days. 8 days is all it took from the time we said, okay, this is how we're going to do this year. We sent the template into the company and they sent out live emails in a week and a day. And I do want to touch on why we waited so long for anyone who may have this concern. The reason that we didn't go live sooner is because we were considering this portal to be, I guess, to subsidize what we were already doing. And from a budgeting perspective, that seemed like a nightmare. I was going to have somebody on staff reconcile, okay, what has this teacher done in ClassWallet and what do they have still available to do the old school paper, pencil and paper requisitions? That just seemed like a bookkeeping impossibility, if I'm being honest with you. So once I could talk our superintendent into allowing this to be the only platform that we use for the year, all of this money had to be spent this way this year. That was the magic for us. So if that's something that you're wondering about, I can't tell you how it worked for us doing it that way because we decided not to, but I can tell you it works beautifully the way that we're doing it.
Mm-hmm. And any concerns about, auditing and being able to be accountable for how the funds were being spent now?
None at all. In fact, that's been one of the wonderful things for my staff is that we have everything at our fingertips when we log into the admin side of the ClassWallet website. But all we have to do is what we would do at the end of every month, the first few days of a new month, we would print out the orders approved in the month prior and the reimbursements approved in the month prior and book those into our system to the appropriate school. And we let all of that detail just exist in ClassWallet. We didn't want to double enter all of that. That seems like huge waste of time. Yeah. So that's how we simplified it as much as possible. And, we haven't lived through an audit yet using ClassWallet. I guess we will find out exactly how happy the auditors are with it in the fall, but I have no reason to think that we don't have all of the documentation we need for all of these transactions.
That's right. You probably would hate to go through an audit with your teachers and say, can you provide a physical copy
Yes.
of all these receipts?
Indeed.
Well, that's awesome. And can you share a little bit more about, you said that you were looking to expand the usage of the platform. Can you share a little bit and elaborate on where you guys are considering that for the upcoming year?
Certainly. There are, at each of the schools, in addition to the state mandated money, there are the activity, music, art, PE. There are others at all the different schools that have their own little budgets. And this year, as the year went on, we were asked by principals and by the teachers who don't already use this platform, can we be added to that? And the answer all year long has been yes. Just wait until the summer and we will add you for next year. So at a minimum, those, but I think we will also add some purses for special education supplies and materials. Probably some of our other restricted fund supplies and materials that the principals can order at their school. Well, it won't be the principal ordering it, but whoever they delegate that responsibility to, so that they can do that on their own and have it certainly shipped either to home or to school, whatever their needs are. I just think it provides a lot more autonomy and a lot more freedom, at the same time giving us everything we need to pass an audit with no problem.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I think that's a good segue into learning more about the platform, but I'm going to ask, before we hand it off to Ash to provide everybody with a high-level overview of the platform, is that if there are any questions related about anything that Shelley has provided related to her process.
And every time we prompt for a question, it takes a moment or two for types, but we've got one from Alex. Funds are placed in some sort of account. I'm assuming that's meant as a question. So Scott, I'll let you field that.
Yes, the funds are placed in an earmarked an account by your school name. We are not a bank, but the platform is pre-funded, and all the transactions and payments to vendors as well as reimbursements to teachers comes directly from ClassWallet. So you're eliminating all of that back-end headaches and attributes related to the platform. And then Ash will kind of showcase how that happens and how you have visibility into what funds are made available and distribution of those. And one thing I will add associated to this, even though this question hasn't come up, but typically it does, is what happens if the platform is pre-funded? What if we don't use all of the available funds? That is 100% up to you of what happens with those funds. We can either cut you a check and refund any unused funding that's provided, and or you can redistribute however you want to the following year on the platform. So, but at the end of the day, the money is yours. It's not a use or lose it type of situation. So, any other questions before we jump into the platform? But great question, Alex. And Shelly, I'm going to ask you before, as Ash is pulling this up, did you have any concerns about pre-funding the platform?
Initially, I did. We had sent our banking services out for bid and had a really strong interest rate. We didn't really want to forfeit. Mm-hmm. But what we did find over the course of the last 9 months is, in prior years, we've left a lot of money on the teachers have left a lot of money on the table in these budgets. This year, they spent all but about 5% of the funds. And usually every year I've been here, it's been at least 20% and some years up to 30%. And I don't know if that was because of the hassle or they would just forget. I don't know why, but I feel like this made it easier for them to just manage what they need and when they get it. Yeah. So at the end of the day, yes, we spent more dollars on classroom supplies, but that's what I would rather us spend more money on than what, the paperwork and all involved to handle the prior way that we did this.
Awesome. Thanks for elaborating on that question. I just wanted to see what your thoughts were. All right, Ash.
Well, we have one more question submitted by Susan, and we'll get that one answered before we dive into the system. How do you adhere to purchasing guidelines if people are allowed to do their own purchasing? Is this platform only for teachers, staff, supply reimbursement?
That's a great question. It really depends. Obviously, there are going to be purchasing guidelines and associated to any type of platform. This is supplemental. If you're saying that anything over $500 requires 3 bids or 2 bids or whatever the situation is, those need to actually be accounted for as well. Shelley, how do you handle that at your school?
We're not purchasing anything through this website that would fall under any strict purchasing guidelines. Every single one of them has to be approved. A teacher cannot release a reimbursement or an order and it just automatically come to them or automatically hit their bank account. The school principals have the next level authority, as well as myself and another staff member here in our office. In case the principal were out, we could do it in their stead. But there's not a single person who has a purse in the system who doesn't have someone behind them making sure that all of the documentation is in order, that the purchase that they're ordering meets, is an allowable expenditure using this money. All of those happen on the backside. It's just not something that the teacher necessarily sees. They do agree to use the website in ways that they know fits what they are required to purchase. But that's really up to the supervisors and the district administrators to know those rules probably better than the teachers do. And that's why we are the ones responsible for approving those orders and reimbursements.
Yeah. Yeah. And typically it's going to be related to the lower dollar values. The platform is not going to be situated for purchasing, things over $1,000 or even $500 that would traditionally follow a traditional PO process. So great question. And I think that's where the workflow process that Shelley described, Ash will be deep diving more into that so you can see how that works as well, because it's not going to be a free for all that they just all of a sudden can make purchases. And the workflow is really going to be designed based upon how you want to organize and set up the system as well.
Sure. So some of these might be answered as we get live into the system. And as we go along, this might answer some of those lingering pieces. What we're going to do is we're going to transition into a walkthrough of a few different types of transactions. We're going to look at things from a teacher's angle who is making a live purchase in a store and is seeking reimbursement. We're going to look at things from the angle of a teacher who is using the online shopping portal through the system to order some materials online. And then we're going to transition into an administrator's perspective to take a look at overseeing that request for reimbursement and that online request for purchase to verify that it falls within guidelines and choose to approve or not approve. So we're going to first look at my device screen. And at the moment, we're looking at an Android device. This system is compatible with Androids, iPhones, basically anything with online access and a browser, because this is a browser-based software. Now, in my case, I am logged in as a teacher who's been given access to 3 specific purses, a community grant purse, a one-time shared special ed purse, and a teacher classroom supplies purse as well. And all of these funds can have been uploaded into the system in a large lump. The system holds those funds, and then you can determine what purses have what amount of money and what individuals have access to which purses. In the case of the teacher classroom supplies purse, that is solely available to this individual teacher, but the one-time shared special ed purse is actually available to 2 different teachers. They are pooling resources in order to spend from that purse together and gather supplies. And that one-time shared special ed purse did not exist about 15 minutes ago. I actually created that purse as we began the presentation today. Now, as a teacher, I have seen a great deal on something in a local retail store, and I just had to get my hands on it before it sold out. Now, I know this all too well. I'm the husband of a teacher, and I am often sent to Target at the beginning of the school year to find colorful items that will work well in her kindergarten classroom. Now, I'm holding a paper receipt from that purchase, and I want to go ahead and submit for reimbursement. I don't even have to leave the parking lot of the store. I open my phone, I open my link to ClassWallet, and I click Start a New Reimbursement. From there, I identify the store name. We made the purchase at Twig Bookshop in the amount of $36.26. Then it'll give me the opportunity to upload the receipt. At this point, I will activate the camera on my phone. aim it directly at the receipt, capture the image, and make sure we've got everything we need framed in there and save. Now, your organization can determine if there are other qualifiers you want logged. And we'll get into those momentarily, but first I'm going to select the purse this is coming from. This particular request is going to be coming out of the teacher classroom supplies. And then my organization, my school, has set up a few classifiers they want me to select from. In this case, this is a class supplies item. And if there are other details you want added, comments, PO numbers, anything like that, those items can be logged within the request for reimbursement, and you can determine those fields show up during the process. If there are no other details, then we'll simply submit that item. And it'll show me that my reimbursement was successfully submitted, meaning I'm not getting paid back yet. I have just sent this on for approval. Now I'm headed towards the marketplace next. For the marketplace, I'm not putting my money as a teacher down up front. I am submitting an online shopping request that will then be reviewed and either approved or declined. So for that, we're headed to my desktop screen. Once again, we can see my purses, and on demand, I can see how much I have left in those purses. For the teacher classroom supplies, I don't have a whole lot left to spend, so I do need to keep my eye on that, but we're going to go shopping. Now, as Scott's already mentioned, we have at this point 63 and counting vendors that we are already working with so that we can provide a rich online shopping experience for teachers. In this case, I am going to make a purchase with Office Depot, or structure up a request for purchase from Office Depot. And then it's just online shopping. I haven't actually left the ClassWallet portal. I'm just being given an experience with online shopping for Office Depot within the portal. And at this point, I want some dry erase markers. So I'll put a search in. I'll grab 3 of these and add it to the cart and check out. Now this will structure up my totals for me. 3 of those items totals out to $61.47. You'll notice that there is no sales tax involved. We've pre-negotiated that out of the online shopping experience, and then we'll run to checkout. Now at this point, once again, I'm selecting my purse. This is coming out of classroom supplies, and I'm going to put that in place, and then I'll select my classification, class supplies in my case. If there are any other notes or items necessary, I can reference them here and then submit. At this point, it will verify the address this is going to ship to. And this is important. You can lock the system to where it only ships to the designated schools. It won't ship anywhere else. If you want to open it up to have it shipped directly to teachers' homes, that is possible, but isn't required of the system. In this case, my account's locked to only ship to the school. So I verified that's the correct address, and it's letting me know once again that my submission for approval is active, and we're waiting for approval. Now we're going to shift gears into an administrator's perspective. I have an eye on my dashboard, and at this point I want to run through recent submissions for approval. So I'll jump into that section of the system, and we have those 2 submissions by teacher 1. Now I'm going to start with that retail reimbursement request. I have the ability to see the receipt they submitted. In some cases, sales tax reimbursement isn't allowable. So if that was the case in your particular organization, then I'd put an eye on this, because I'll note that this is the full amount with sales tax, and maybe we don't allow reimbursement of sales tax. If that's the case, I've got the ability to chop the sales tax piece out of that transaction before approving, and I can put a note in letting the teacher know why the reimbursement is lower than they requested, and remind them that we don't reimburse sales tax. If you do reimburse sales tax in your case, So be it. It's all there and ready to approve. But
And
maybe the
Ash,
teacher, yes, go ahead.
I'm going to ask Shelley, how do you handle sales tax?
We allow the reimbursement of it because whenever teachers before were going and shopping wherever and submitting the receipt for reimbursement, we allowed it then. And so we have done that. And we have heavily scrutinized anything that has not been sales taxed as to whether or not we should pay tax to the state of Arkansas. And my accounts payable clerk has been working with someone at the Department of Finance and Administration. We have not gotten an official ruling on that yet. They're trying to determine how easily we can determine what is a manipulative versus what is just office or school supplies, something like that. But we do have so far this year, we have all of the transactions with no sales tax isolated, and we know the total that we're going to owe to the state once we get that decision. And I mean, we've still got a couple of months to close the year, so time is running short, but we do have time to work on that.
Got it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the online purchase in this case had no sales tax involved. Once again, we've pre-negotiated that out of the totals with our vendors. So now I'm just reviewing the details, the classification. I've got down to the SKU level. Oops, we're still in Twig Bookshop. Let's approve that. Now we're going to our online purchase. Once again, reviewing the classification. I'm down to the SKU level data here. So we see this particular item ID, we see this particular description. Maybe I want to track how often we are ordering this particular SKU, or how often we're we're ordering a similar SKU that might be priced differently if we guided folks to ordering this SKU instead. I've got that kind of data in the system now so that I can analyze and make decisions and communicate those decisions out. In this case, this is on the up and up. We're good with what is submitted for purchase. And so I'll approve. With both of these approvals, I've now authorized the ClassWallet system to pay the appropriate individual directly. So in the teacher's case, the teacher is getting a direct payment into their bank account from the system in the amount that I've approved. In the case of the Office Depot purchase, this has now authorized payment to Office Depot, which will initiate that order so that it'll begin getting processed and shipped to the schools. Now, once those approvals have come through, I now have the ability to report on it. So I can jump into, say, user orders and see what types of orders we have had come through for Teacher 1. I can see the receipt images on demand. I can push report details out on demand into Excel. So if I need to put that data to work for me outside of the system, 2 clicks and I've got it. So that incorporates any kind of data point that this system is tracking so that we can really get to the nitty gritty. I mentioned those items before. Maybe I want to focus on specific items that we're constantly ordering and figure out if we just need to have that thing in stock somewhere. So all sorts of great data flow there that I can pursue. And that is everything I wanted to make sure I show everyone. I know a couple of questions have popped up as we've gone along. It seems like, Scott, we were answering them as they popped up. So I'm going to turn the floor back over to you, ladies.
And I'm going to ask if there are any other questions related to the platform functionality that you guys would like to cover or have a better explanation about. One thing that we don't typically show in a high-level overview is the back-end administrative view of, as Ash mentioned, how quickly on the fly that you can add a purse to the platform. So if you do have special situations where you've got a science department or a different program that needs to be set up, you can easily set up a purse and again either make it one-to-one or associate it to one-to-many people to be able to draw from, to be able to submit their receipts against, and or to make purchases online. So one thing that I did want to cover, if there are no other questions, And let me make sure that I'm sharing my screen again. Is that Ash had shared with you guys that we have a multitude of different vendors on the marketplace. Currently today, I think we have 63. We're adding new vendors on a weekly basis. And we've got some of the largest vendors that you're already accustomed to doing business with, Lakeshore Learning. We've got Scholastic, School Specialty, are some of the larger ones that we do a lot of business with. We also, very interesting, just added Varsity Tutors maybe a month or so ago, especially, and the reason why I bring this up is that we're hearing with this latest round of ESSER funds that so many teachers are trying to bridge that gap and address learning loss within the classroom. And the value add of having varsity tutors is if a teacher recognizes that there is significant gap in part of in their classroom with specific students, that they can actually then go and access varsity tutors and so get a tutoring session for that student above and beyond, especially during the summertime. So we're seeing a lot of different use cases, and we're actually going to be doing a webinar in a couple of weeks with varsity tutors specifically addressing this and how the ESSER funds are going to be leveraged, because again, we're hearing this conversation in a multitude of our existing clients that they're planning on leveraging this. So what I would do is, I know that we are up on our 45 minutes. If there are any other questions, I did want to thank everybody for attending today's session, and special thanks to Shelly on sharing her story with us, and Ash for providing a high-level overview. I would say if anybody's interested in getting a one-on-one session where we kind of walk through what your current process is today, we do have weekly webinars scheduled that these are open to public audiences, or we can set up a private session to specifically talk about your specific scenario at your school. But with those weekly sessions where we go over Teacher Wallet is every Thursday at 2:00 Eastern Standard Time. And then we also have a session where we focus on the maintenance and operations crew members that are going out and making a lot of purchases every Tuesday at 2:00. But what I'm going to do is ask for you guys, we just started doing a lot of these client showcase sessions, and we really would value your feedback on how you enjoy the session. So I'm going to close out the session with 2 different polling questions and ask you guys to participate. And the first polling question is, on a scale from 1 to 5, how would you rate this presentation, with 5 being outstanding? And I said 1, I'd rather be sitting out in the cold than online in this meeting. So I'm going to launch that question right now. And if you guys wouldn't mind completing that, and then we will have one other question. Oh, we got some 5s. I love that.
I'm working on that question right now, Scott.
Perfect. We're waiting for 4 other people to share their votes. So I'll give you a couple of minutes or a couple of seconds to continue. All right. 6 out of 8. Shelley, we haven't gotten a 1, so that's a good thing.
I'm happy.
All right. Great. I know that we're at the top of the hour. So the next poll whoops, sorry about that. Technical difficulties here. I'm not the best. Let's see. The next poll is whether, based upon what you learned today, do you think that ClassWallet would be a good fit for your organization? And answer would be absolutely, answer two, possibly, I see the value. Really not sure, maybe I need to learn some more, or maybe in the future. All right. Great. Well, I wanted to thank everybody again for their time and spending that with us on a hump day. And if you have any questions or need any additional information, feel free. You can reach us at sales@classwallet.com, or you even have my contact information on the screen directly here. And thank you again, Shelley, for sharing your story with us.
You are welcome. Happy to do it.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much. All right, everybody else enjoy their day.
Bye, guys.
Take care.